Many of the internal values and data that make Gaussian splatting scans special are a complete black box to creators and artists. In version 4.1 of the 3DGS render add-on by KIRI Engine, we introduce a function to directly play with these values, a feature that can be valuable for learning about what makes 3DGS tick with hands-on experience, as well as the possible creation of new artistic styles. In this video, I'll show you how to use this feature on your own scans. Okay, to start, I'm going to press the N key to bring up the N panel, find the 3DGS render add-on, and from the edit mode, import a file as verts, and I want to render later in high quality rendering, so I'll keep create proxy object enabled and import my file. The file is imported, and on importing, camera updates are disabled. I'm going to show it as a point cloud and look in rendered mode. And I can see that Hulk is fighting Iron Man here, but it's not the right way up for my Blender world. So with it selected, I'm going to hit rotate active to Blender axes. That's better. Maybe reposition it into the center and rotate it on the Z-axis. And I don't want these background points, so I'm going to quickly use from modifiers and crop box the auto generate crop object function. And if you haven't watched it already, we have a short tips video on using just this feature, but I'm going to zip through it quickly to get rid of these background points. Anytime you see reflection or metalness shown in a 3DGS scan, that's produced by something you might have seen in 3DGS software called spherical harmonics. And that can mean absolutely nothing to you. That's fine. If I open the Blender spreadsheet, and with the original scan selected, I can see that it has a number of attributes filled with data. We have position, as we would expect. Each point has a position in space. We have FDC values, which contribute to the normal color. But we have all of these FREST values. And for most users, this is an absolute black box of meaningless numbers and jargon that doesn't make any sense. And if we change these values, who knows what would happen. So for a way for users to actually investigate what those values do and to experiment and have a little bit fun with Gaussian splatting, we've added a new modifier in edit mode. Modifiers, if I select my scan and I add the modifier, at the top I can see remove higher SH attributes. This is if you don't want to use any of those fancy reflection or transparent effects within the higher quality rendered mode or within external viewers. You can save some memory and save some performance time by removing that data from the object. But as the warning says, doing that is completely destructive and not a reversible act, notwithstanding undo. So only press OK and only use this function if you know what you're doing. Below this, we can adjust scale, rotation, opacity, and the spherical harmonic attributes. If I enable scale attributes, and I'm going to add to the current values that I can see in my spreadsheet, if I find scale, there they are, scale 0, 1, 2, and 3 is somewhere. I can make it unified, so I'm adding the same value to all of them, or I could do it individually to each separate value, and this is the value that is going to affect them. So if I add, let's say 0.1, I can see that the splats got a little bit bigger. If I add 1, I can see that they're much bigger and the effect is quite dramatic. I could do this to an individual scale attribute, and I could add, multiply, subtract, etc. But be careful, if you multiply, values can get out of control very quickly. And I can see now that I actually left my value on 0 and I changed this setting to multiply. So I've multiplied all the values by 0 and it's caused my computer to freeze. So whenever you're changing these values, be very careful with what you're doing, as you can experience freezes or crashes. It's best to play with very, very small value changes. And if you're multiplying, remember that multiplying by 1 is effectively no change. With the modifier now disabled after my Blender stopped freezing and the attributes set to 1 and multiply, if I re-enable the modifier, it's effectively doing nothing. If I change this value very slowly, I can see that it's taking effect. And I can see that within the spreadsheet, the values are changing. Applied globally, this effect doesn't look like much, but it could be used for some kind of stylistic pencil drawing style, or if it was controlled with a driver, maybe some kind of VFX or dissolve. If I change opacity or any of the spherical harmonic attributes, let's say I add 10 to the SH2 red channel, nothing seems to have happened. These attributes, opacity, SH1, 2, and 3, are only visible while in render mode or in external 3DGS viewers. For that reason, this is the only modifier that you'll find still editable from the render mode. If I now jump into render mode, I can see that I don't have a modifier menu, but if I select my original scan from the outliner, I can see that it is the active object here, and I can see the modifier adjust attributes here. And if I now enable SH2 attribute changes, add to the red channel, and I update my scene from render update, whoa, I can see that is way too crazy. If I check the spreadsheet with the modifier disabled, I can see that many of the FRES values are negatives and less than 0.1 in many cases. So adding a value of 10 is absolutely massive. Let's try instead multiplying by 10. And I need to make sure the modifier is enabled and update the scene. And I can see now that has had a big effect. And that's actually kind of cool. What happens if we also multiply the green channel by the same amount? That's maybe too much. How about we keep them both a bit more subtle? That's not doing so much. Let's try the SH3 attributes. Generally speaking, I find for the spherical harmonics, multiply works well. Let's try multiplying them all. And that's quite chaotic, but perhaps interesting. And what values are good and what values are bad is absolutely up to you. This whole modifier is about playing and experimentation to try and do things that currently no other 3DGS editor allows you to do.